let me take you back to a simpler time. If you were at school back in 2002, chances were you would see people playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The big celebrity news was the Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake breakup. But the music people were actually listening to was most likely Eminem, Christina Aguilera, Avril Lavigne, and Alicia Keys, who won 5 Grammys that year. At the movies, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, had just been released, and so had Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. But the biggest box office hit was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And everyone's favourite computer game was The Sims. Some Sims fans here. The biggest tech items were the iPod 2 with a stunning 20 gigabytes of memory, and the Sanyo SCP-5300, which was the first ever phone to have a built-in camera. Think about it. It just blew your mind, didn't I? It was safe to say the world would never be the same again. There was no YouTube, no Facebook, no Snapchat, no Insta, and definitely no TikTok. No, it was better back then. We never had to confiscate any mobile phones because hardly any teams had one, and they weren't exactly a fashion item. How did those poor souls survive back then? And FCAC was just in its 8th year. It looked very different. No library building, no Gin Centre. What was here was just a flat concrete slab roasting in the hot sun. Also bubbling away in the hot Hervey Bay sun was the friendship between 2 Year 12 students, Emma Greiner and James Paussa. Or was it more than a friendship? I think you know where this is going. Maybe it was. James loved his sports and was in the college's first ever hockey and cricket teams. He also enjoyed debating and any subject that was IT related. He credits Mr. Ginn's Year 12 Information Processing and Technology class with helping to shape his career. Where James loved his sports, Emma was passionate about performing with the college's Rock Eisteddfod team and many of the school's musicals. Where he loved his IT and science subjects, she loved writing and humanities. You can guess where this is heading. It sounds like the script for a teen romance movie. 2 students with totally different interests become friends, and then one day realise they have feelings for each other. Yep, that's what happened. And you know, James was actually a FCAC Foundation student, starting in the very first Year 5 class back in 1995. After graduating, he went on to complete a Bachelor of Information Technology, majoring in data communications at QUT. Following this, he worked at various internet service providers in Brisbane. Emma also studied at QUT, a Bachelor of Business with a double major in advertising and marketing. She was working at some of the biggest advertising agencies in the state, including a role in marketing for the Queensland Theatre Company. At a barbecue with friends in 2013, James happened to meet a fellow Aussie who was working in California at Facebook, now Meta, who suggested he apply for a job there. This was back in the day when young people actually used to use Facebook, before it was used by middle-aged mums to share photos of the family dog. Yeah, you can relate. James packed his bags for Silicon Valley and ended up working for Meta for the last 10 years as a lead network engineer. Emma joined him in California and worked for a tech startup for 3 years before moving across to Meta, where she spent 6 years working in internal communications. They're back in Harvey Bay now, and Emma has recently joined Fraser Coast Tourism and Events as their new digital marketing manager. What a great pickup for the council. Well done, Emma. And James is currently taking a break and getting some fishing in. Well, I'm also pleased to report their son Malcolm is now one of our Koala Kindy students. I would say that they truly have come home. And so I'm honoured to introduce to you our guest speakers for this Foundation Day, two of Centauri's finest, Emma Greiner and James Paussa.
I don't know if we need to say anything after that intro.
Yeah, I feel like Mr. Wright has kind of covered our whole life story there, so just bear with us. We've both been a little bit sick, so if there's any like sniffling and, you know. Good afternoon, FCAC. Thank you for inviting us to your Foundation Day Assembly today. So, as Mr. Wright mentioned, I'm Emma Greiner. This is my husband, James Paussa, and we're both FCAC graduates from the class of 2002. So up on the screen, that is us on our last day of school 22 years ago, making us 39 this year. So all those old stories. We're feeling very, very old right now. So we, as Mr. Wright said, we were both in Centauri, the best house. Yeah. So raise your hands if you're in Centauri. Let's give a big cheer. So Centauri didn't win a lot of sports carnivals when we were here. I don't know if it's a coincidence. But hopefully that you guys as the next generation are doing a much better job than us. So when I started at FCAC as a Year 8 student, as Mr. Wright said, James was actually in the very first Year 5 class when the school opened in 1995, so the school has changed a lot since then.
Yeah, as Emma said, I was a foundation student here, and yeah, obviously things changed a lot in 29 years. My first class was actually in Coman. Right next to the flagpole there in the room on the corner. And it's kind of funny because every day, well, not every day, but most days I drop my son Malcolm off at Koala Kindy, and his room is right next to the room that I started in. So it's kind of a fun little thing coming back here every day. And so obviously back then, you can see from the photo, this I think was the first day of school, I was told. My dad sent me this photo in 1995. And so in the background there, what is now, you'd see the library on the right-hand side and the administration building on the left-hand side. Was all bushland. But yeah, obviously back then, the school has developed a lot. It was under a lot of construction, but the construction, weirdly enough, isn't the thing I remember. The thing I remember most is that we'd be picking rocks up off the oval almost every time we had spare time. And so over a few years, or it felt like a few years to me, we'd pick up rocks off the oval, and eventually I got to play cricket on that oval, we got to practice hockey on that oval, and we could fall over, scrape, and without hitting a rock or hurting ourselves, which was now thinking back of it, like I complained so much about picking up rocks for all that time, but it's so good to see that like that work paid off for us.
So once James and all his classmates had picked up all the rocks, then it was 1998, and so I arrived at FCAC, which is when James and I first met in Year 8 Centauri. So some of you might know Mr. Lynch. So he was lucky enough, maybe unlucky enough, to have us as our tutor when we were very silly Year 8s. And then again in Year 12, when we were just much taller, but still just as silly. And so romance was not yet in the air for James and I in 1998. We'd become good friends over the years, hanging out in our Centauri group every day until Year 12, when we actually became an item. So when I first arrived at FCAC, in Year 8, I was very, very confused about this strange school that was really obsessed with canoeing and swimming and making you walk around in the bush all the time. I don't know if they still make you do that. But I thought, why are we doing all this? And when am I actually ever going to use these canoeing skills again? Well, wouldn't you just know it? I started a new job a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I'm just going to be working on a computer all day. This is cool. But in my second week, ended up in Gari with my new boss and a film crew who are shooting drone footage of kayaking on a beach. And I thought, hang on, actually I can do that, and I can help out here. And those canoeing skills from 20 plus years ago actually did come in handy, helping me navigate around all the bends. And I only hit a couple of trees, so that was okay. And it was actually fun, and it wasn't scary. So sometimes random things that you'll learn at school that you don't see the point of at the time will actually come full circle 20 years later and actually help you out in a job. You'd be surprised. So other than thinking at the time that canoeing and bushwalking were probably not my calling in life, I spent all of high school never really knowing what I was going to do. When I graduated, I did a terrible job at every sports carnival, couldn't do triple jump. I had a great time in the drama programs. I played a bit of netball, made some amazing friends that I still catch up with 22 years later. I chose a mix of subjects and just kind of tried to wing it and figure it out. After high school, still didn't know what to do. So I took a gap year, worked at Baker's Delight in Brisbane. I thought the only thing I'm getting out of this job is a lot of cheese and bacon rolls. But I actually found that I was learning leadership skills and how to manage people and problem solving, rostering skills, banking, all these important things that you can actually use in your next jobs as you keep going. And so my diet of bakery treats and pizza, thanks to James being a pizza boy, which was very handy, sustained me through my Bachelor of Business at QUT. And for the next few years, I worked in a bunch of different marketing jobs, ad agencies. Some of the jobs were great, some of them were terrible. But each job I took taught me new skills that I could then apply to the next job and the next one after that. Anything you learn from graphic design, website management, copywriting, it all comes in handy later on. And so for some people, their career path is just like a ladder where you're just going straight up, rung by rung. But I would say mine is a bit more like one of those spider web things that's at the park where you're kind of going from like side to side. And certainly I was getting stuck a lot on my way up.
Yeah, so I'll let you know right now, me and Emma had very different experiences around this. I always had a fair idea of what I wanted to do. I was lucky that I knew I liked to fix things and I liked to problem solve. I just didn't know what job was going to fulfill those. I remember our Year 11 leadership camp, Dragnet. Part of the mission for my team was to move some canoes 5 kilometres north from one creek they were currently in to another. We were fortunate to be going downwind, but we were still making slow progress. So after a short time, we decided to raft up and put our heads together. We'd only need a couple of people at the back of the canoes to steer. And so we thought, hey, what about we take the paddles off the people at the front, they don't need them, tie our hoochies to them and use some sails. So there we did. We hoisted the sails and we made great progress up to our objective. We had all the ingredients, we just had to put them together. Even academically, this was true for me wanting to solve problems. I'm not sure what the syllabus is today, but for the subjects I had, there would be both a theory and application part of exams. And to be honest, I still don't like theory today, but the application questions are something that I actually really enjoyed. I love the idea that, hey, you have the knowledge required, take it, solve problems. This is a big part of what my career has been, taking knowledge and experiences and then applying them to new areas that haven't been done before. This is also something we would interview when I was at Facebook. We used to call it a pirate interview, but it was more about we didn't want to know what you knew, but we wanted to know how you could apply what knowledge you had to build something you'd never built before. And so right after school, I started at QUT, and I found the transition really difficult. Moving from a structured learning environment like high school, where I found it to be quite easy to learn, to one where I was responsible for my learning, wasn't something I'd prepared myself for. One of the great things about being at a school like this is you have the support to understand how you learn and how best you can learn, and take that with you. I didn't take full advantage of that at my time in my high school years at FCAC, and it's something that caught up with me at uni. But I graduated uni by the skin of my teeth and I began looking for a job. I had a degree in information technology, majoring in data communications, which meant I should find something in the internet field, but I'd take anything at this point. Luckily, I'd taken electives in programming, database systems, web systems. I was somewhat qualified to do a lot of different things. But after a lot of searching, I found my first real job. So over the first 6 years, as Mr. Wright said, I worked at a bunch of small ISPs, everything from customer support to network design, billing and intranet systems, learning some programming along the way. And in a way, I was really, really lucky to be working at these very small companies because there weren't many people to do things, so you had to do everything. And becoming a jack of all trades allowed me to learn how everything worked from the top to the bottom. And that's understanding is what helps me still find and fix issues today. And so this all leads to my Facebook journey. As Mr. Wright said, I was at a barbecue in 2012, and I was talking to a mate who had started working at Facebook. And they were looking for somebody who did my sort of work. Anyway, the interview process was kind of involved. We did 3 phone interviews in January, then I flew out to Silicon Valley in February, and I spent a full day interviewing over all sorts of topics, networking, which I understood, programming, which I understood, and then I had a Jedi interview, sort of a behavioural interview of how you interact with people and how you solve problems. I went away from that day thinking it'd been an awesome experience and it'd been cool to fly out to the US and visit a different country and meet a bunch of really smart, super interesting people, but that was going to be the end of the journey. Turns out I was wrong. I was what they were looking for. So I packed my bags for the USA, literally just a couple of bags, and Emma stayed in Australia and I flew out in April 2013. At this stage, we figured Facebook would work out. They meant to hire a different James Paussa and would send me home soon enough. I found out later that having the wide background that I've been building over the previous years was something rare and in demand. So, what did I actually do at Facebook? My team was responsible for keeping the network running, basically making sure what we called the site stayed online and connected to the internet. Being at a core level of infrastructure like the network meant that any outage or any problem that happened in the site, people would ask, is it the network? And that would be asking people in my team or me. And we'd have to be able to answer that question. So what it meant is we'd have to learn how the different systems worked at Facebook, how they would interact with each other, and then how they would fail between each other. It also meant we needed to understand our own side of the network and how it could impact the site and how we could build systems to better answer that question, is it the network? And so every single day was a learning experience for me and something that would get me up in the morning. But I guess I'll add here now that folks might be wondering, after 10 years, why leave your dream job? As it turns out, being a mum or dad really changes your perspective on life. Our son, Malcolm, was born in February 2020, and our daughter, Libby, was born in October 2022. We'd lived through COVID in the USA, which was an interesting experience of we didn't go to our office for a year and a half because we weren't allowed to. And the last few election cycles have also been interesting. But mostly living away from family for 10 years and having 2 small children, it was time for us to move back home. So here we are.
And so you're probably sick of hearing this from your parents and teachers, but it's true. You are all really lucky to be here. When we lived in America, people would always ask us, have you ever seen a kangaroo? And we'd say, yeah, they just jumped around our school every day. And they'd go, no, you Aussies are just messing with us. A school like this, that is this beautiful, could not surely exist in the real world. So whether you have a dream that you want to chase or you're still figuring it out, channel your energy into doing the best you can while you're here to set yourself up for later. You have incredible facilities, you have wonderful teachers who are here to support you, and you have the opportunity to try out a huge range of different things, subjects, sports, extracurricular activities, volunteer work, whatever you're interested in. So try and figure out what you enjoy and be like a sponge and just soak up all the knowledge and the experience that you can while you're here and learn from it. And if you see an opportunity you want, give it a shot. If we were too scared to try, we never would have left Australia, we never would have gone to the US, we never would have gone to Facebook. And we had the opportunity to work with some brilliant people and travel all over the world and have an amazing, fun, life-changing experience for 10 years. When I worked at Facebook, I was writing updates that were being sent out to tens of thousands of employees and hundreds of thousands of clients every day all around the world. And there were so many days I thought, my brain is going to explode. I am so stressed out. I can't keep up with all the breaking news and everything that's going on. But I could, and I did. So if I can survive hiking up a sand dune in sweltering heat and canoeing all day and sleeping on the ground in Year 11 camp, I could do anything. And so, as it turns out, through all of the classes and the camping in the bush and the sports carnivals and the cultural activities and you guys having to wear blazers in the Queensland heat and picking up rocks, it turns out they'd actually been trying to teach us a few things while we were here. And so here were my takeaways from what I've learned. There's not just one way to learn and one way to succeed. By participating in a range of classes and activities, it can help you explore all the different ways that you can absorb information and think critically and create new things and solve problems. When you work as a team and support each other, not only does it lighten the load, it makes everything more fun. Take pride in yourself, your classmates, and your school, and wear your hat. You are a lot tougher than you think you are. Nothing is that bad. And even if you don't know what your path is yet, you can go on to achieve big, amazing things any time in your life. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. Thank you for having us here today. We hope you all have a lovely Easter break, and
Go
Centauri!
Centauri.